process. NIP over on the blue side, Cam-Man, a good part about our job is, now that we have an analyst desk here, is that we got to sit back, relax, listen to some of their insights, and I really wanted to highlight the jungle matchup as we go into this one as well, because Naiyou and Xiaofang have been the biggest players really for their teams in terms of these new additions coming in and finding some success. Both of them have had a lot of success on this Viego. It was banned away on the blue side. Expect that to be a really highly prioritized pick as we go throughout the series.
Yeah, not surprising at all to see the Viego banned out. I think you kind of need to ban it right now against LNG. It's certainly the thing that Xiaofang feels the most comfortable on, but the Varus is left up here for the blue side, so that will be a pretty easy B1 lock-in for Leave. He's been pretty good on this champ, and I think it really does play into the idea for Ninjas in Pyjamas that they've had throughout a majority of the back half of this split where they wanted to play weaker side on the bot side of the map. So really makes a lot of sense to lock in there. I think for LNG, prioritizing something strong on the top side makes the most sense for me. Rumble left available certainly feels like a good lock-in, especially with the Galio already banned.
Kind of setting up for that in the first phase of the drafting process. Zika's been playing a lot of Rumble and Renekton over the last couple of series where maybe they found a little bit more success here on those picks. And when you have somebody like Zika, who definitely we've seen the highs out of him throughout his career over the last couple of seasons, want to put him onto something very comfortable. The Pantheon would make a lot of sense as well, given that normally it's something that is banned quite often on that red side, but it seems like NIP prioritizing the Varus instead.
Yeah, we're seeing the Pantheon get through a lot more commonly over the past couple of weeks. I think teams are willing to take some trades a little bit more fairly with the Pantheon, especially if they feel like they can just kind of outskill the tempo in the early game. But there are still a lot of pitfalls that fall into a team that wants to try to go toe-to-toe with the Pantheon in the early game. You need to make sure you have a mid laner that can adapt and move around the map. That's exactly what NIP grab here with the Taliyah, and pairing that up with the Skarner. This is a very flexible start for Ninjas in Pyjamas, just about as flexible as you could possibly ask for on blue side. It's exactly what you want to draw up, at least in a game number one. Give yourself options and, kind of save those counter picks for some champions and some players that might be able to utilize them well. Hyper carry makes a lot of sense as well for LNG. Fish one, maybe not the most consistent AD carry across this split, but he certainly has looked his best when he can just farm up and play for late game. Looks like that, at the very least, will be his identity on Sivir.
Yep, something that can play safe, not be the primary focus of the early game at the very least, where now Xiaofang can really try to hone in onto this Rumble. I expect some top lane bans here in the second phase as well. Naiyou on the Skarner had a great game in the decider against EDG, and that's a big moment for NIP. I feel like a lot of them were, a lot of people were kind of considering them to be maybe the second best team after they got kind of smacked around by EDG the first time that they matched up, but getting that win here in the second round robin, it really, I think, has upped their stock. And even though they have definitely dropped a bunch of games like throughout the year, taken to a bunch of game number 3s, this is definitely a very exciting NIP roster that we could really be looking at as being a contender in that play-in stage.
I think it's a really great shout. Honestly, especially with that win over EDG, it's not crazy to say that this could be a top 6 or top 7 team in the LPL right now. And that's without any sort of growth that you can expect from this team continuing to play with each other a bit more in terms of, the reps that they're getting. So excited to see where they've already been and excited to see where they could go, but it kind of has to happen today. The point to make is, of course, EDG still have quite a few series left. This is the last one for Ninjas in Pyjamas. They have to win today to have any shot of getting that number 1 spot in Group Nirvana, but it will be the Alistar lock-in, again, just taking away options from Ninjas in Pyjamas to pair up with that Varus to make it a bit more consistent. They ban out the 2 supports in the Nautilus and the Nico. Mid lane, the priority on the other side with them having already selected Taliyah. So, a lot of things that end up locking in here, but I think the direction that Solokill ends up going to round out this comp is going to determine a lot, and the Mbessa, I think, showcases that they really do want to play at least a bit more aggressive here.
Yeah, I mean, he's played it in 2 of their last 3 series, won both of those games, obviously. Niket locking in the Rel to round things out. We'll see what LNG want to pick here on R5 for Haichao. Bit of a controversial player in the LPL. He's had his highs, had his lows, but now going up against Doinb, a very big test here for LNG. We talked about NIP's stakes in the standings. LNG, even more of a dire spot. They're currently in last place in Group Nirvana, needing a win here, needing multiple wins to round out their season. Try to have any sort of shot. It's going to be the Aurora here for Haichao. LNG, they set themselves up with a very nice team fighting composition. I'll give them that.
That's definitely what they're going for. They're trying to make it as easy as possible. And you know what, Grapes? I'm all for it. I think at this level, the more you overcomplicate things, the harder it becomes, the more difficult it is to win these games. So just get Rumble, just get Aurora, just get Sivir, you know, play front to back, try to get a lot of that engaged through. I think that there are options for Ninjas in Pyjamas in this game, but I do think they have to play fast and they have to play quick. If you can get that Mbessa in particular strong on the top side, then things can really open up, but it's really going to be up to Doinb on this Taliyah, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way.
To be able to facilitate very nicely across the map. That's what Doinb loves to do. You get that man a global, semi-global, anything like that, he will make sure to use it. As Ninjas in Pyjamas currently sitting at 8-1 here in the standings. Of course, we talked about our jungle matchup being very important, but down at the bottom lane is where we got to keep a little bit of an extra eye as well, knowing that we have our pro diff coach in Rhino, support for many a team in the NACL and collegiate space, most recently with Supernova and Ole Miss in the Challengers League in North America. We'll have to watch out for what OVO and Niket are able to do and see what exactly Rhino is going to be wanting to break down as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see how he breaks down the support play here. Both of these supports with a lot to prove. I think Niket's really coming into his own. OVO elevating the aggressiveness of LNG as they talked about on the desk. We'll see how it plays out today.
Well, let's do it. We're in Shenzhen for Ninjas in Pyjamas' final matchup here in the Split 3 regular season. After this, going to be fully high stakes. You want to have higher sights than just that play-in stage. Let's do it here in game number 1. I think the crowd might be off here for this first game. At least that's the hope.
That's the hope. Unfortunately, we are getting our customary no Gyos for our Group Nirvana matchup, which I think is very, very unfortunate for this matchup in particular, because there is so much to actually like about not only the way the draft played out, but just the overall circumstance for these two teams. Yes, it is top versus bottom right now in the group, but so many interesting things to follow, and that starts with the jungle pathing. Both junglers kind of hovering the bottom side of the map, could be pathing up top side. Xiaofang wants to look for action here, but Naiyou might be on a bit more of a timer, so I'll be interested to see exactly where these junglers want to put their resources early.
Yeah, see Leave with the Comet on the Varus, meaning that they're going to really try to exploit this 2v2, so it'll be most likely a bot lane focus here for Ninjas in Pyjamas, whereas on LNG's side, you have Rumble and Aurora alongside that Pantheon here for Xiaofang. That definitely has to be the focus of how LNG really drive their attention here in the early game. Just trying to leave Fish 1 and OVO a little bit on their own and hoping that it works out for them. We'll say that OVO just whiffed here on that initial Pulverize as we're getting some fun trading down here in the bot lane to start things off.
Yeah, it's a miss for miss. You can not worry about it too much. I think Shove in this lane is going to be pretty easily acquired by LNG, especially after they hit this level 2 first. Going to be pretty difficult for NIP to be able to contest this because of the Sivir. But Varus should be fine, generally speaking, especially the later we get into this game. So mostly I'm just going to be looking at exactly where the pressure from the mid lane ends up going and whether or not either of these teams want to swap early on, because I think that could dictate exactly what resources both of these teams want to prioritize.
See both of our junglers pathing towards the top side of the map. See if anything happens there. Trade nicely done by Niket. Actually chunking down Fish 1 to about 300 HP. That is how you get the advantage. Obviously, Sivir can push, but if you can push her out of the lane, it could mean a good opportunity for NIP's bot lane to take some control. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the supports, but Leave, specifically in the bottom lane, has really been a driving force for NIP as well. If he has good games, that means that NIP are typically in good positions, so seeing him get off to this early lead is also a very good thing to see.
Yeah, I want to give Leave a lot of credit because this was a player that we talked about being very resource heavy during his time on EDG and even at the beginning of the year. I think he's really settled into this almost weak side bot lane role with Naiyou coming into the jungle very well. And he's been a huge reason why this team has found success, being able to play a variety of different champions down on the bottom side. You correctly pointed out, pretty big lead here, but see if that can translate to anything. Right now, it's just the junglers going head-to-head.
Wow, Naiyou with the Ixtal's impact straight into the wall for Xiaofang. Doinb has that push, so gonna force the LNG jungler away. We're waiting to see that seismic shove combo, and Xiaofang's gonna have to flash away from that. Nicely done by NIP. The first 4 minutes getting that early advantage on the top side.
Yeah, super healthy clear for Naiyou, ends up allowing him to really pressure out this Pantheon, and it's well-timed by Doinb to be able to make the roam. Overall, it's just a huge win. Overall for NIP, burning that Pantheon flash, that really decreases his effectiveness in a lot of these ganks and skirmishes early, so definitely going to be excited about that if you are a Ninjas in Pyjamas fan.
We'll see if that flash really can be punished as we continue to go throughout the early portions of this one. Okay, man, we were talking a little bit before we got into game here about what we liked and disliked about OVO joining this LNG team, and I think you put it best where LNG was a team with Zhuo that really didn't do a whole lot across the map early, but with OVO here, at least they're doing stuff, even if it's not necessarily good stuff, and I think we saw that they're already in the mid lane here, just 4 minutes into the game. This is going to be something that we're going to have to continue to watch throughout this one.
It's very clear that OVO brings a very aggressive mentality to the game, but I think that's exactly what LNG needs. They've really lacked a lot of playmaking and creation throughout this year, and I think OVO has given them at least a glimpse of that. It's clear that the team at least is a bit more decisive for one reason or another, but I think it's going to be difficult for him to showcase that in this lane in particular. Again, depending on how things go, this should just kind of be a farm up type of lane, but the Alistar can have a ton of effect in the later part of this game. You know, Ninjas in Pyjamas have plenty of ways to engage, but if LNG can get on the front foot, OVO might be the player to watch in terms of just exactly how these fights get started.
Speaking of, looks like Niket's going to match with an attempt here into the mid lane. Haichao pops that invisibility to make sure that he is under 0 threat. We have the Dragon spawned on the bottom side, going to be the Hex Tech, but neither side really wanting to start that one up just yet. Again, top side focus really has been in order here for actually both of these teams. And I think the main play here, K-Man, will be the grubs that spawn in just a couple more.
That is definitely signaled by Fish1 making his way to the top side of the map here, although teleport expended by Solokill, so he will be on the top side with this level 6. We've seen some unfortunate circumstances for AD carries when they 1v1 top laners on the top side of the map. You always got to be careful of some missed positions, but this should be generally fine for Fish1. He should be able to shove in the wave here relatively easily, and depending on how aggressive Xiaofang wants to be here, they could definitely set up around the river right about now.
You see now Niket trying to match suit as well. Interestingly, for NIP, 3 teleports. Something we actually did not mention at the top of this game. Leave has that ability as well to really maneuver across the map. We might see that here, as Naiyou has gone in alongside Niket to chunk down OVO to half HP, but Xiaofang has joined the party as well, forcing another flash, this time out of the jungler for Ninjas in Pyjamas, so that cooldown will not be available for the upcoming grubs fight.
Yeah, just a bit of a greedy exchange overall for NIP. They feel like they can try to make a play onto the Alistar, but Pantheon's always going to be in the area for this, so they end up having to burn both heal and flash on Skarner to be able to get out of there. Certainly makes the play a lot more difficult and a lot less safe, so I think things equalizing quite a bit here. Xiaofang's flash will be up soon. Zika just using his ult to clear the wave, as we've become accustomed to. Doinb ulting.
Nicely done here by Haichao. It chunks Doinb to about half. He does not have a teleport available, so could create a tough situation in these next couple of minutes. Haichao definitely ahead in terms of that just HP bar department, which always can be important for some of these big skirmishes that really could make or break this game. I know K-Man, LNG, they have the scaling, so for them, like, getting some of these major objectives is a bit of a, like, I guess a bonus, but NIP really want to make sure that they are off to the races early here with the composition that they have.
Yeah, they really can't afford to get behind, and I think we're seeing that in the way that they're playing the game. Solokill potentially in danger here, but likely just very, very safe on the top side with that level 7. It's really just going to be about how careful LNG want to be. If they want to try to contest over these objectives, well, great. Maybe you can end up getting some for free. If you don't want to contest, well, you're giving over free resources to a team that you don't really, feel like you are the favorites in the matchup against. And so, it's never really an easy decision, but it's actually the Dragon that started here by Xiaofang with the grub spawning.
Yeah, Fish1 and OVO still on the top side. Will not be able to join. Neither will Solokill, as he still has his teleport off of cooldown, and it looks like just showing of face by Ninjas in Pyjamas is enough to force Xiaofang off the objective. There's a lot of vision on that top side right now for LNG, so they will very much know that Naiyou has started up these grubs. The question is, do they have anything to do about it?
Doesn't look like they're going to be in the area for this. The call from LNG was clearly to try and trade objectives here. Xiaofang now seeing that the Grebs are taken, will go back onto the Dragon. NIP just wasting a bit of time, you know, calling the bluff there of LNG as they take the Grebs themselves. I think this is a good trade for both teams. NIP need the power of the Grebs to be able to push in and gather gold as quickly as possible, and LNG very happy to start stacking those Dragons for their late game win condition. So both teams, I think, doing relatively well here.
So we get some miracle steal by Niket. It should just be that trade and objectives. LNG going to be happy to put themselves in a position to start stacking a Dragon Soul, whatever it will end up being of type. Whereas NIP getting those 3 grubs will be very nice. Get that early pushing power, making sure that they can try to snowball what has already opened up to be about an 800 gold lead for themselves by picking up some more plates and just getting some more control across the map. So I think overall, both teams relatively happy with how things have gone. Still looking for action here, K-Man. Not a ton, at least so far, as I say that. I'm trading here on the bottom side. Fish wanted to flash away from the Chain of Corruption, but now OVO's on the way alongside Xiaofang with that Grand Starfall. But Niket's able to crash down away, make sure that not enough gap has created for LNG to continue the play.
Quite a few resources committed to a play that goes nowhere for LNG. Certainly not ideal to utilize both Pantheon and Sivir ultimate for basically no kills, but trading Leaves ultimate is generally fine in this case, so you're not going to worry too much. But you're right, Grapes, this has been a bit of a slow start overall to a matchup we were hoping to see a bit more action in. That being said, I do think eventually this will start picking up, especially if LNG do want to keep stacking those Dragons. They have a comp that really thrives in a lot of these close quarter fights. See if NIP can maybe try and punish this bot lane now.
Yeah, again, this one still no flash. Still has the cleanse available though, and Niket's gonna have to be pretty careful because the Sivir does still pump out a little bit of DPS, but with Naiyou in the area, it should mean a cessation of control on the bottom side, and now could be OVO in a bit of trouble. Pack taking it back in a bit of a tough spot. Pops the Unbreakable Will, should be able to survive a little bit. But with the Impale, with the Exhaust, with a lot of things expended, should be enough for NIP to pick up first blood. OVO so low. Finally, Doinb will finish it off with an auto attack, but it's bought a lot of time for Haichao, landing that between worlds. But now he's going to be in a lot of trouble. The boulder and the burn nearly enough to take him down. And it does! Naiyou making it 2-0 NIP.
Oh, it's a huge, huge play for Ninjas in Pyjamas that looked disastrous for a bit for them, but Haichao unfortunately turning things back in favor of NIP in terms of the re-engage 3v1. It is a huge swing of gold going in favor of Ninjas in Pyjamas, and you can talk about the scaling, you can talk about the way they play these late game team fights. If you're gifting a ton of gold over to NIP, who's playing very aggressive, things are going to get sour really, really fast. It's Naiyou and Doinb linking up once again to make a play.
And just a bit of a greedy back here by OVO, not realizing that the collapse could still continue. Even though he has ult, he has flash. Doesn't use either particularly well.
Yeah, it's unfortunately not a good exchange for OVO. Ends up not being able to flash over the Talia wall. Does try to get something back with Niket, but once Haichao comes here and OVO dies, it becomes very difficult. Haichao seeing an angle to continue and to try and burst down Doinb ends up going for another play. Unfortunately, it's just locked down. Pretty inadvisable, I would say, for a comp that really relies on being just as close as possible going into the late game, and definitely a big swing for NIP, but it's about how they can use that gold right now, as they still need to keep their foot on the gas. For now, Doinb pressuring the bot lane.
Gold lead opening up to 2,000 off of that play. And LNG going to try to make some sort of a trade here onto Niket. Nicely done by OVO to try to find some engage. Niket does still have both of his summoner spells, but maybe not going to just use them, try to save them for a later date, as Xiaofang will come in and punish for the first kill of the game for LNG. Now Leave could be in a little bit of trouble here, getting stunned up by Xiaofang, who jumps in with that Grand Starfall. But the Varus will survive and LNG get on the board.
It's a really nice pick for LNG. They needed to be able to get some gold back there, and it does go on a good target in the Pantheon. A little bit of a waste of the Pantheon ultimate afterwards to get some damage down on Leave. A pretty big cooldown to burn there, but overall, a necessary play for LNG to stay in this game. Gold lead, not really equalized, but certainly a little bit better. But Dragon spawning in 1 minute, that's going to be the big priority, in my opinion, for these two teams. Herald still a minute and a half away, so I imagine bot side will have the pressure for now on, especially after Haichao ends up pushing in and catching that bot wave. So we will see where these teams want to put every bit of resource they have at the current moment.
Yeah, that's the type of playmaking that we are excited to see from a player like OVO, right? A new addition to the roster, coming in to kind of find some solution to salvage this bottom side, to salvage this season for LNG. Able to be creative, and obviously it was Niket who stepped forward and into the enemy jungle, but OVO with the Hex Flash, finding the punish, forcing Niket into a bad spot. That is what we want to see out of a newer player like this. So, you know, hopefully for LNG, whether this is just a chance for them to keep their season alive, to get a chance to get into that play-in stage, or this is just an opportunity for them to trial some new players and see what their options are looking into 2026. This is the stuff that we like to see out of a player here like OVO.
Definitely, he has brought that second level of aggressiveness to this team, but it's NIP now being aggressive as they start up the Dragon. If they take this, it's quite bad for LNG. We will have to see how that ends up breaking down as stream ends up being a little bit wonky, at least for me here. But it does look like it's going to go over to NIP here. And again, stopping that Dragon stacking is pretty massive overall for Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Yes, yeah, they have really controlled things here in this first game ever since that first fight went their way on the bottom side. We're starting to get first item completions coming through kind of across all parties, but at these early spikes, favoring Ninjas in Pyjamas at least a little bit, you know, getting that Youmu's onto Varus. As you see here, already having a major impact onto Fish1, nearly taking him down. Fish1 had to use both the Spell Shield and the Cleanse to get away from that.
I mean, that's the problem with the Sivir matchup. You can talk about the Spell Shield being very good into Varus, and you're absolutely right, but you can't Spell Shield everything. You've got to pick your targets, the Cleanse being necessary there. Fish1 with a really nice Captain Jack to be able to get himself to safety, but this can be a tough matchup for Sivir if Fish1 ends up mispositioning, which is something that, let's be honest, he's done a couple of times over the course of this split already. I think a lot of pressure is going to be put on the front to back. See if the AD carry can step up.
Herald up, LNG wanting to try to force the pressure here a little bit. Throwing a little bit of poke out here from Haichao, who now has the completed Liandry, so we'll be able to do a little bit of extra damage here in this potential fight. They've really started to load up here on the top side of the map. Both top laners still farming down on the bottom side, knowing that they have teleports to join the team if a fight does break out. Niket, though, popping that early ghost, going in. OVO gonna catch him out, though. In a lot of trouble, gonna end up taking him down. That's Haichao picking up the first kill of the fight.
Very, very big get there for LNG to be able to pick up that Rel. That's really the easy form of engage. At this point, they should control the Herald, and it does look like it's started by Xiaofang. I would be shocked if NIP want to contest this, but they definitely look like they want to.
Still a lot of resources, a lot of damage here on Leave specifically. You can see the piercing arrows doing some work to poke. OVO waiting on the backside of things. It looks like Ninjas in Pyjamas turning their sights instead towards Zika, who walked over to try to join his team towards the mid lane. That forces a flash out of him, and it also forces LNG to get away from the Rift Herald of Naiyou. Now is the one to start it up.
Super heads-up play there from Doinb to completely change the fight. It's a great Talia ultimate to scare out the Rumble and force LNG off because they don't have the combat power. Naiyou is strong enough to be able to stand his ground in that situation, so really nice play by Ninjas in Pyjamas that is going to win them the Herald, and it's once again just better execution. You can talk about NIP having the draft that can, you know, win fights at this point in the game, but you still need to position well. Even after Niket ends up getting caught, they still are able to get the objective.
And that's a big shout for NIP, who control both topside objectives. All three of the grubs and that Rift Herald now in the hands of their jungler, Naiyou, on the Skarner. And Ninjas in Pyjamas, a pretty good spot here in this game, but as we mentioned, continuing to keep that pace going will be critical as we move along here in this one. But on LNG's side, they gotta try to figure out where their damage is gonna come from in some of these later fights, as Haichao and Fish1 really have been put behind, and OVO might have gotten caught out himself, forcing that Unbreakable Will. Haichao in the area, but not going to be able to save his support. Another big mistake here by OVO as Feats of Warfare claimed by Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Yeah, it's so difficult to really secure areas here with NIP playing so well as a group, and unfortunately, OVO paying the price on the Alistair, but LNG will at least make a play somewhere else. They grab that mid lane tier 1. They're going to continue to push in this wave, so not an entire loss overall for LNG, but still a good pick for NIP as they continue to grow their gold lead.
Getting that first tower as well, so technically for them, not getting that first tower of the game objective, as actually mid-tier 1 was taken by LNG. But Feats of Warfare, Feats of Monster Slaying, both in their inventories. They're going to have those upgraded boots as soon as they get picked up for the remainder of this game. Now our sights turn towards that second dragon for either squad. It is an Ocean Rift that has graced us here in this first game. We'll see if NIP want to focus down on it. I feel like for them, fighting as much as they can when they are at this point is probably a good thing for them.
Definitely. You know, making those exchanges as much as possible is always good. Getting any gold in the pocket of your carries is going to be a big deal. As NIP end up pushing in down on the bot side here. This should be bot lane tier 1 for free, which should set up relatively well around this Ocean Dragon. I just want to pinpoint how scary it is to start giving NIP Ocean Dragons in this game with Ambessa, with Skarner, with Rel. It's going to become very difficult to break through this team if you're giving up a lot of these objectives. LNG, unfortunately, might need to fight here.
Xiaofang going to be the one to try to lead the charge, has that Sunder Sky in his inventory. A very strong position right now. As OVO doing his best to face check a little bit with that support item, keeping him nice and durable, but you can see NIP strengthen their composition right now with Leave at the point that he is at. Poking out with the piercing arrow, mid lane control now being generated by Ninja Pyjamas as they will send the Herald into there, and Fish One's already down to 40% HP. In a very tough spot, Summoner Heal already popped. As LNG going to have a tough time trying to get into this Dragon Pit.
Yeah, Fish One taking so much damage trying to clear the wave on the Sivir. Basically makes this fight unplayable, I would say, for LNG. They're going to try anyways, though. NIP setting a trap.
Looks like NIP not concerned for the Drake just yet. Instead, they want the fight. They want OVO, and they should be able to take him down with Naiyou claiming the gold. Public execution flashed away from by Fish One, and it uses the cleanse to get away from that Varus chain. And so LNG only losing their support for now, but that should be enough here for the Ninjas to head towards that second Drake.
Yeah, that will be a huge win for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Once again, just really smart execution. Understanding that LNG basically have to contest even with the Sivir in a bad spot. That Weaver's Wall ends up completely separating everyone on LNG, forcing OVO to basically perish immediately in the fight. And once again, it's just great setup and execution from Ninjas in Pyjamas. We really are seeing a bit of a team diff in terms of how this game is going. We're going to get a replay here as we do see LNG feeling like they need to posture to try and push NIP off of this objective, but they just don't have the resources to do so. As tanky as this Alistar is, he can't survive forever, and we're immediately back.
Yeah, another fight has opened up, and OVO once again gonna get targeted. He dies for the 4th time this game as Solokill jumps in there to claim another kill onto the cow. And Ninjas in Pyjamas taking advantage of one of the newest roster moves here for LNG. And they might be able to, they're not gonna get to the Otacon here. They're gonna push away here, but continuing to push their lead.
It's looking tough for OVO right now. Sometimes you get that aggressive tendency, and it gives a lot to the team, and it gives a lot of positives. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily give a lot of positives. We're going to get a replay with how this ended up starting. Xiaofang just walking into Niket and Naiyou in his own jungle. He has to flash out of the Impale, but at this point, should be a relatively easy disengage. LNG, however, want to try and punish. It was actually Leaves teleport coming in, so immediately has to flash. But even at this point, OVO cannot frontline. Like, he does not have the tank stats. He's going to die incredibly quickly, and it's Ninjas in Pyjamas once again just proving who cares if we don't have the team fight strength. We've got a 3-kill Skarner and a Varus that's absolutely piercing your frontline.
Oh, OVO trying to make up for it here with the play onto Niket, but he's actually gonna maybe be taken down. Burning right now with the Unbreakable Will onto him. If it wasn't for that ultimate, he certainly would have been toast as both supports get taken down to below 100 HP. But nobody ends up falling.
You can call OVO a lot of things. You can't call them scared. Unfortunately, the play just barely not working out, and NIP, with that tempo that they generated, are going to start up the Otacon. And honestly, I'm not sure LNG can contest this. Xiaofang and Zika are in the area, though.
Yeah, Fish One, though, did take a reset alongside his support. Xiaofang is going to have to try to jump in here to steal this away, but instead will be claimed by Ninja Pyjamas, and now they're going to look for a fight with Doinb coming in with the Weaver's Wall. Xiaofang dodge away from the seismic shove and should be able to survive. OVO going in again here on to Naiyou. Remember, he doesn't have that ultimate, so he just gets bursted down quickly. And here comes that Grand Starfall from Xiaofang, but there's no follow-up from the rest of his team. He should likely go down. The Aegis keeping him alive. Public execution onto the Sivir as well, as Solokill's looking at 1v2. Leave dies on the backside, but Solokill gonna win it. A 1v3, getting himself a double kill. As NIP end up losing a couple members, but they're going to be happy about that as the Otacon's now in their hands.
It's gone from bad to worse for LNG in this one. It's a very ill-advised fight. Doinb with another great Weaver's Wall to force LNG into this choke point position. They try to capitalize, but as we'll see on the replay, there's just not enough damage. They end up flying in here, and it's well dodged out by Xiaofang. Fish1 still taking some damage at the start of this fight, but OVO re-engaging on the Skarner. Solokill can just burst him down alongside this Talia, and the Alistar is once again almost entirely ineffective. The moment that Xiaofang goes in, he immediately gets ulted by the Skarner. That means there's absolutely no follow-up, and once Solokill obliterates the backline here, gets onto the Sivir, it is a free cleanup for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Solokill has been on fire as of late, and that was very clear in that fight. They have taken a commanding lead, and that's with Baron spawning in 30 seconds, Dragon spawning in just over a minute. Could be nearing the end here for NIP.
And Solokill's Mbessa has just been a big piece of the puzzle for Ninjas in Pyjamas as well. He's had such tremendous games on this pick specifically, especially over their run in the second round robin here in Group Nirvana. Do you want to give some credit to Zika? He found an angle onto the flashless leave, ended up soloing out the Varus and getting a little bit back for himself, but right now, the rest of his map not doing particularly well, as NIP have opened up a 3,500 gold lead. They are continuing to just torment the enemy jungle as well, with the next site being towards likely that Baron Nashor, which has just spawned.
Yeah, I can't speak for anything concretely, but, you know, Rhino might have been onto something on the pre-show, talking about Zika, looking at the rest of this team. You know, not sure I'd be feeling too good after that fight, but unfortunately, just not a lot going right for LNG in this game, specifically the Alistar just getting caught out, being so aggressive. We will see OVO once again so far forward. Could potentially be punished, but at least he has his team with him this time.
Oh, and they just walked straight into vision. Everybody else got away, but Fish1 might be the one left out to dry. Meanwhile, Solokill fighting things out in a 1v3, uses the ulti to get himself back towards his team, and guess who the target will be once more? It's OVO dying for the 6th time this game. Solokill ends up picking it up, and another one goes into the hands of Ninjas in Pyjamas with the Dragon spawning.
Truly a game to forget right now for OVO, but things are not over just yet. Yes, this is soul point for Ninjas in Pyjamas, which is never good, but it is not soul, which I think is the important piece to take away from this. Baron still on the map and still fightable, but that gold league just continues to balloon and grow, and right now Ninjas in Pyjamas have already proven that they can do more with the gold that they have than LNG can with what they have, and you know, to have more resources in that scenario as well could be very dangerous. And
now Haichao could be in some trouble as well, popping the ulti and the flash to get away from Doinb, who went in for a flank. And LNG just seemed disjointed at this point. We talked a little bit about OVO making some nice plays at the start of this game, but it feels like overall, K-Man, he's not had the impact that we have been hoping to see out of the LNG support. I know that a lot of the times you can't necessarily look at the KDA here for certain supports. I know our guest here on the stream, Rhino, has had multiple instances of dying a lot but still being very impactful for his team. The KDA is not always pretty, but this is one of those situations with the KDA. It seems like it's speaking towards how OVO has been playing, which is far too aggressive and not really lined up with the rest of his squad.
Yeah, I think you can give him at least a little bit of slack for some of the deaths, but certainly not all 6 of them. I think that is fair to say. It's tough to play support when your team really has no tempo or pressure around the map, but OVO needs to really learn how to pull it back. I think that's something that is, you know, clearly lacking from his game. We've seen that in other series as well. He has one mode, and that's forward, so we'll see if that can end up turning things around at this point for LNG, but we could have a classic fight over a buff here if we see LNG walk forward. Will just be the give with Baron still on the map.
Remember, for LNG, they have a Sivir, they have the Rumble, who actually has gotten himself pretty far in terms of items and levels now with that Rift Maker now completed. So they have the damage to theoretically get themselves into a stage where the 5v5s work out, but right now NIP not letting them have it. They're not going to really be at a position where things are even, especially if they're able to claim this Ocean Soul in about 3 minutes time. So LNG, even though they have the scaling comp, almost on a timer here, K-Man, they need to make sure that they do not give up this soul, or else it could be a really bad time for them.
Yeah, I was talking about it earlier. The moment you give Ocean Soul to Mbessa, Skarner, Rel, this game becomes nearly impossible to win with the lack of damage that you have right now on LNG. So you need to be able to control this area, but so hard to do so. Naiyou can just walk in.
Yo, flashes forward
No.
again, but he gets canceled by the
Xiaofang.
Impale. Xiaofang coming in with a Grand Starfall, but ends up immediately backing out. Solokill ends up false starting here onto the Pantheon, but still going to be able to slow him down, take down the jungler for LNG. The equalizer does a little bit, but it's not nearly enough to burst anybody in NIP down. And with Xiaofang down for the next 40 seconds, Baron certainly could be on the cards. But it looks like instead they want to try to generate some priority here in the mid lane. Haichao dashing away from that seismic shove. OVO now going to be the target as Solokill dashes forward. And LNG are just slowly running into their doom. Naiyou with the Ixtal's impact takes him down and goes straight into Fish One to pick himself up a double kill. Zika is now overheated on the wrong side of the map. He will fall. Haichao gonna get knocked up by Niket. It's an absolute wipe as the ninjas in pajamas put LNG to bed.
If there was ever any doubt on who was going to run the rest of this game, it's been put to rest with that fight. LNG once again feeling like they can jump in and try and take a fight. OVO flashing to try to find an exchange onto Naiyou, who looks to be, quote, overextended. Xiaofang ulting to try and turn things around. But of course NIP have members to be able to back that up. It's a desperation play that they're just not able to capitalize on, and Baron will be the prize.
So NIP gonna be wearing purple for the next 3 minutes time. It's getting a look at how this one started off. Engaged potential here from Naiyou. Very, very nice. And Xiaofang maybe taking things a little bit too far.
Yeah, it's just a really, really aggressive look here, especially once the Weaver's Wall is dropped for not only OVO to go in, but especially for Xiaofang to ult. With Solokill on the flank, there's really no way for the Pantheon to get out of this. You're just sacking your jungler in this instance, but as I said, definitely a desperation move for a team that feels like they have to do something. At this point, LNG make the call to at least push in the mid wave to try and dissuade NIP from immediately taking Baron. But at this point, how do you get out of here? If NIP end up making the collapse, that's exactly what ends up happening. Even in these small quarters fights that we thought LNG were going to be good in, there's nothing to do. And the gold lead is just too big at this point. Ninjas in Pajamas are so far ahead. Their execution in this game has been so much better in terms of how they play these champs. And now they have everything on the map to show for it.
Well, Haichao's going to TP down to the bottom lane, which is seemingly where LNG want to make their final stand. As they're pushing in this wave, but it might not be very far. Zika going to get ultied as he's just way out of position. And Niket comes in with a two-man Magnet Storm as well. Already the first casualty is in the hands of NIP. Impale lands onto Fish One as Solokill gonna finish the job. Another wipe here for the Ninjas as they'll pick up an easy Game 1 win.
From moment one, it was clear one of these teams was just better in this game, and that team is Ninjas in Pajamas. They are one game away now from being able to end their split with only one series loss in the regular season, and they do so at the very least here in Game 1 in incredibly dominant fashion.
In a matchup between the first place team and the last place team in Group Nirvana, certainly looking like it. In this first matchup, at the very least, Ninjas in Pajamas 19-4, a dominant win here in Game 1 of this series.
Well, Grapes, we certainly have a bit to discuss. I'm excited to hear what the desk has to say about that game number 1, because there are a lot of things that ended up going wrong for LNG and a lot of things that ended up going right for Ninjas in Pajamas. Just about every play going in favor of the favorite team in this series. And honestly, if Game 2 is anything like Game 1, we might be in for a short series.
Tough one here for LNG. It felt like they never really were in a position to do anything, almost. Like they seemed like their identity in terms of how they wanted to play the map never really formulated, whether it was the early play on the bottom lane, successful dive there in to take some early gold, and then how they were able to just like lose out on some of these major objectives. I mean, the only thing that they were able to get was that first dragon, and it came at the cost of the 3 grubs, and we saw how big of an impact that ended up having as we got later on into that game. The support matchup conversations, I'm looking forward to it, because there's definitely some things to discuss with how that one went.
Oh, yeah. I think there's quite a bit to discuss. I think, unfortunately for OVO, that was likely his worst game of the split up until this point since joining this LNG roster. Getting caught out early ended up being really consequential for snowballing this game out of control. You know, we often talk about how it's usually better for teams to make decisions and to be aggressive, even if those decisions aren't the right ones. Fortunately, in this game, that very much was not the case for LNG, who really suffered from perhaps going in situations they maybe didn't have setups for.
Yeah, and you know, I'm curious to hear Rhino's thoughts of like how much of that is specifically the support's fault versus just the team not setting up for him. Obviously, if you're a new player, you know, jumping into a roster, making like, you know, your LPL debut or your first couple of games here in this league, a lot of pressure on you to perform, especially with the stakes of where LNG are at in the standings, as their chances of qualifying into the playing stage rapidly slipping away at this point. But also got to give some credit to NIP, as they really did play this game well. Talk about some MVP favorites. I feel like Solokill definitely has to be up there. He really played some of those team fights well.
Yeah, Solokill is a monster on Mbessa. He's been in such incredible form over the past couple of weeks. It really does feel like he's kind of found his, you know, niche on the top side of the map and how this team wants to play the game. I want to give a shout out to Doinb. I thought the Weaver's walls were incredible on the Talia. The shoves were incredible in this game, but really everybody on Ninjas in Pyjamas stepping up and really just out executing LNG in a lot of these pivotal exchanges. I think you can look down the board at every position and really say that everyone was better than their opposition.
And just to do a little bit of napkin math here as we go through the Nirvana standings. I mean, LNG currently in last place. Fourth place has 3 wins at this point. That is Ultra Prime, who also still have 2 matches left to go. And so for LNG, time's ticking. They still have to play EDG as well. And so really going to have to turn things around if they want to have a chance to come alive and go here into this, you know, next segment of the season. Otherwise, it's going to be wraps on LNG for 2025. But that's going to do it for us here on the caster desk. Let's throw it on over to Slayer, Cubby, and Rhino to see what their thoughts are on this game.